These are the 10 rare, bulletproof monsters insurers are scared to cover. Out on the ocean right now, there is a fleet of heavy displacement dreadnoughts. They are armor-plated survival capsules built during the Cold War. They were designed to punch through hurricanes, bounce off reefs, and bring you home alive. But right now, corporate suits in glass high-rises are quietly blacklisting these legendary machines. If you try to buy one today, the insurance company will hang up the phone. They will tell you these boats are too old or unsafe. They are lying. The real reason these unstoppable tanks are being banned has absolutely nothing to do with ocean safety. It has everything to do with a secret financial formula the marine industry is desperate to hide from you. Why are the bureaucrats terrified of the most over-engineered sailboats ever built? In the 10th place, the Albin Vega stands as proof that even the smallest Cold War bruiser terrifies the insurance suits. They call it a pocket cruiser, but there is nothing dainty about this Swedish-built tank. The spreadsheets say too old, too risky, not worth the paper. But the Vega's hull shrugs off those insults with 30 millimeters of solid glass, no foam, no balsa, just 4 layers of e-glass and polyester, hand-laid to survive the North Sea. 13.5 tons of displacement, packed into a hull just over 32 feet. Ballast, 6.8 tons, fixed deep in a full-length keel. That is a ballast ratio that would make most modern 32-footers look like aluminum cans. And yet, here is what the actuary sends. Coverage denied. Vessel age and construction type exceed acceptable risk profile. No mention of the thousands of Vegas still crossing oceans. No credit for the monolithic laminate. The numbers do not lie. 35 millimeters of armor, 6 tons of lead, and a writing moment that laughs at spreadsheets. This is the pocket tank that breaks the algorithm, and the denials have already started. If they are blacklisting the Vega, what chance do the bigger monsters have? Number 9, the Westsail 32, is the angry little bruiser that corporate actuaries wish had never been invented. This is not just a pocket cruiser, it is a cult artifact, a survivor's tool built for the sailor who laughs at spreadsheets and sails straight into Atlantic storms. The hull alone is a statement of defiance. 12 layers of hand-laid fiberglass, up to 1 inch thick at the turn of the bilge. No foam, no balsa, just raw, solid laminate from keel to deck. 7,000 pounds of lead are encapsulated in the keel, not bolted on as an afterthought, but molded deep into the spine of the boat. That is half the displacement in pure, dense metal, giving it a writing moment that mocks the knockdown algorithms of the insurance trade. This is not just theory. There are logs from Caribbean hurricanes and Category 4 blows, and the Westsail 32 comes out the other side with nothing but bruises. Meanwhile, the insurance brokers say that vessel age and construction type exceed acceptable risk profile. No mention of the 33 millimeters of hull armor. No credit for the thousands of ocean miles logged by these so-called obsolete hulls. Seattle Yachts once wrote that boats older than 20 years are rarely insured unless they are exceptional classics. The Westsail 32 is the definition of exceptional, but the spreadsheet cannot see past the calendar. This is the pocket tank that broke the actuarial model, and every denied policy is a badge of honor. The suits can blacklist all they want, this bruiser will still be out there, punching through surf while the modern fleet cowers in the marina. 8th place belongs to the Alberg 30, a classic long keel shadow that haunts the nightmares of every spreadsheet-bound underwriter. This is the boat that closes out the era of so-called pocket tanks, yet it never played by the rules of fragility or cost-cutting. The Alberg's hull bottom, measured by surveyors with ultrasonic hammers, averages 18 to 20 millimeters of solid fiberglass, no foam, no tricks, just raw, hand-laid mass. Every inch of that hull is a rebuke to modern cord toys. The gridwork inside is equally conservative: deep, wide stringers, glass to the hull, bulkheads tabbed with thick roving, and chain plates anchored in a way that would make a Lloyd's inspector nod in silent respect. Displacement? 4 tons, with nearly half of that sunk into ballast. That is not just stability, It is kinetic insurance no algorithm can price. The long keel damps sea motion with a slow, deliberate roll. None of the twitchy, nervy snap rolls that plague the cookie-cutter fleet. A surveyor once told me, "No modern 30-footer can take a pounding like this. If insurers could see inside the laminate, they'd raise their own premiums." But the Alberg is punished for its age and its refusal to die. The spreadsheets do not measure margin for error, they just see a number on a birth certificate. With the Alberg 30, the Pocket Tank Act ends, and the scale tips toward the true dreadnoughts. Number 7, the Tayana 37, this is where the spreadsheet starts to sweat. No more pocket tanks. This is the mid-sea dreadnought, a 38-foot juggernaut built at the height of Cold War paranoia when shipyards in Taiwan answered every design brief with one word: more. More glass, more lead, more margin for error than any actuary could stomach. The Tayana's hull is a monolithic slab, 35 millimeters thick at the turn of the bilge, 6 layers of hand-laid glass, almost half of it vinyl ester. No balsa, no foam, no cord trickery, just pure solid armor from stem to stern. Displacement is 17.5 tons. Encapsulated in that hull is 8.5 tons of lead, not bolted on, but sealed inside a full-length keel that acts like a spine of pure gravity. The ballast ratio sits at 49%, a number that would send a modern production yacht straight to the recycling bin. This is not theory. Pull the AIS logs from Hurricane Dorian, Case D, 2022. A Tayana 37 rides out 2 days of 40-knot winds, storm surge, and breaking seas. No hull breach, no keel movement, not even a hairline crack at the grid. The suits do not care. Here is the Ombudsman ruling. Surveyor concluded cause was poor installation, policy excludes damage caused by negligence. Translation: armor does not count if the boat is old. The spreadsheet cannot price a hull that shrugs off punishment like this. Encapsulated lead, 35 millimeters of glass. These are not design flourishes, they are an act of defiance. The Tayana 37 is the mid-size monster that breaks the actuarial shortcut. If they are scared of the pocket tanks, this dreadnought sends them running for the exits. Number 6, the Valiant 40 is where the spreadsheet buckles under the weight of real engineering. It is 40.5 feet of ocean-crushing hull, packing 18.5 tons of displacement, and a 9-ton lead keel that sits like a fist at the bottom of the sea. Actuaries can't compute that kind of gravity. Their formulas stutter when they see a ballast ratio pushing half the boat's mass. But the real story is in the hardware, a bronze arsenal built for survival. Every through hull is a solid bronze seacock, not the brittle plastic that modern builders bolt on to save a few dollars. The refit logs, file E if you want to check the receipts, are thick with stories of owners swapping out 40-year-old bronze for new bronze just to be sure. That is commercial-grade thinking: overbuild, then overbuild again. The hull layup is 36 millimeters of solid, hand-laid glass. No core, no foam, just 6 plies of woven roving and matte, locked together with 40% vinyl ester resin. You could drive a spike through it and never see daylight. The Valiant's deck gear is all oversized. Winches, cleats, and chain plates are specified for loads that would tear the fittings off a modern racer. This is industrial patriotism in fiberglass form. The insurance suits don't care. They see a birth date in the 70s and a hull that will not depreciate on schedule, so they stamp it uninsurable. But when the sea starts throwing haymakers, it is the Valiant 40 that stays upright, punching back with mass, margin, and a bronze-plated sneer. If armor is what wins at sea, this bruiser is a floating fortress, denied coverage by people who have never seen a real storm. Number 5. The Hans Christian 38. Here stands the fortress that makes even the coldest actuary sweat. Forget the myth that strength lives only in hull thickness. The Hans Christian 38 is a different kind of monster. Its secret is buried inside, a molded one-piece fiberglass liner grid that ties hull, deck, and bulkheads into a single, unyielding mass. This is not some afterthought glued in for show. The liner is hand-laid, cured as a single part, then glassed directly to the hull. No plywood, no rot, no excuses. Every ton of the 16-ton displacement is distributed through this internal skeleton, turning shock loads from mast, rig, and keel into nothing more than a shudder. Non-destructive testing, including ultrasound and tap hammers, proves the grid stays sound after decades at sea. Surveyors report zero delamination even after full knockdowns in the Southern Ocean. Ask any owner who has ridden out a blow in one of these. The hull flexes less than a steel drum. One skipper, call him Frank, logged a trans-Pacific run in 2013, 48 knots sustained, green water over the doghouse. The spreadsheet would have written him off as a casualty. Instead, the liner grid took the pounding, no cracked tabbing, no bulkhead separation, no panic. The insurance suits never see this architecture. Their model cannot price hidden armor, so they stamp it uninsurable. But at sea, the Hans Christian 38 is a walking fortress, one last dreadnought before the scale tips to full leviathan. If you want to see what happens when engineering outsmarts the spreadsheet, look inside this grid and tell the suits to bring their calculators. Number 4. The early Amel 30-35. This is where mass production meets Cold War paranoia, and the result is a legend the suits cannot stomach. Forget the fragile yachts rolling off today's lines. The Amel factory in the late 70s was building monsters by the dozen, each one armored with a vinyl ester-rich laminate that measures a staggering 34 to 38 millimeters thick. That is not marketing spin, it is in the original layup sheets buried in the shipyard archives. 6 plies of solid glass, no core, no balsa, just pure, monolithic strength from stem to stern. The ballast is up to 11 tons of lead, fully encapsulated inside the keel, locked away where even a grounding cannot shake it loose. On paper, these boats weigh in at 15 to 20 tons, but in a blow, they feel twice that: momentum, inertia, and a righting moment that turns knockdowns into mere inconveniences. This is not a boutique one-off, it is repeatable, industrial overkill. Every hull, every grid, every encapsulated keel follows the same blueprint, stamped out with the kind of consistency that makes actuaries sweat. Brokers know it too. Heritage Clause G, right there in the files, tries to carve out an exception for the Amel's overbuilt reputation. But the spreadsheet does not care. It sees a hull older than 40 years and a laminate schedule it cannot price, so it blacklists the whole fleet. Never mind that not a single Amel 30-35 has suffered a catastrophic hull failure in open water. The numbers are too big, the armor too thick, and the suits want nothing to do with a factory-built leviathan. This is what happens when you build to survive the apocalypse, and the market demands planned obsolescence. The early Amel 30-35 does not just break the mold, it shatters the actuarial model, and the insurance industry has been running scared ever since. Number 3. The Pacific Seacraft 40. This is where the production line becomes a fortress assembly. Forget the marketing spin about blue water ready. This cutter is engineered to punch through the actuarial firewall, a semi-custom tank built for the sailor who wants a war machine, not a weekend toy. The hull geometry is pure defiance, a full keel that runs nearly the entire length and anchors a displacement of just under 17 tons. The bottom, Survey Sample H, confirmed it, has 31 millimeters of solid fiberglass at the turn of the bilge, no core, no shortcuts. That is not a rumor. That is a non-destructive test. Ultrasonic hammers ringing off a monolithic shell. Systems redundancy is everywhere. Shaft logs are overbuilt, through hulls are bronze, and the rudder post would make a destroyer jealous. The rig is a cutter, not for style points, but so you can drop to a storm staysail and still keep moving when the wind is howling at 50 knots. The ballast sits deep and wide, encapsulated in the full-length keel, not bolted, not glued, but locked inside a glass sarcophagus. The numbers do not just look good on paper, they are proven in the field. Owners who have crossed the Pacific in these brutes report zero hull flex, even after days of pounding head seas. Surveyors throw their hands up and say it is as if the boat was built to survive a collision with a shipping container. Yet the spreadsheet says risk profile exceeds threshold. The suits see a hull built in the 80s and the 90s and slap on the age penalty, never mind the armor index that leaves modern production boats in the dust. This is not a boutique one-off. Pacific Seacraft built hundreds to this spec, each one a rolling rebuke to planned obsolescence. The insurance market cannot price this kind of overkill, so they blacklist it. But the ocean knows the difference. When the spreadsheets fail, the Pacific Seacraft 40 just keeps crushing miles, a semi-custom leviathan that refuses to die. Number 2, the Westsail 42. This is where the spreadsheet shreds itself in terror. Take everything the 32 ever did to scare an underwriter and multiply it by 2. The 42 is not just a scaled-up bruiser, it is a juggernaut, a slab-sided fortress that turns actuarial models into confetti. Here is the raw truth. The keel alone weighs in at nearly 12 metric tons. No typo, that is a figure straight from Owner Archive 1 and confirmed by survey. That is more than some entire production yachts displace, and it sits locked inside a full-length encapsulated lead box, glassed in so thick you could mistake it for a safe door. Hull thickness? In the critical impact zones, surveyors have measured over 35 millimeters of solid hand-laid fiberglass, no core, no foam, just a monolithic wall built to outlast the spreadsheet's patience. The sail area to displacement ratio is conservative by design, a deliberate act of engineering heresy in a world obsessed with performance metrics. The 42 will not win a regatta, but it will flatten a breaking sea and bury its shoulder into a gale without flinching. Every inch of this hull is a rebuke to planned obsolescence, oversized rig, full-length encapsulated ballast, a deck grid that laughs at flex. This is the monster that bridges the gap from pocket tanks to full leviathans, the missing link between the cult classic 32 and the globe-crushing giants that follow. The insurance industry cannot compute exponential armor scaling. When the numbers get this big, the spreadsheet breaks down, the risk score explodes, and the only response is a denial letter stamped with fear. The Westsail 42 is the penultimate act in the old world symphony of overkill. It is a survivor's dream and an actuary's worst nightmare, a floating indictment of every flimsy hull and every cowardly policy ever written. And if the suits are running scared now, just wait until they see what is coming next. And finally, in first place, the Formosa 51, the globe-crushing leviathan that shatters every actuarial fantasy of risk and reward. There is no spreadsheet on Earth that can price what is inside this hull: 38 millimeters of 8-ply hand-laid fiberglass, a monolithic shell that laughs at the cord sandwich toys of the modern marina. The builder's spec sheet does not mince words. 8 layers, each one rolled and stacked until the hull bottom is thick enough to stop a railroad spike. This is not a rumor. It is written in the original yard documents and confirmed by surveyors who have hammered their way through a dozen of these monsters. The numbers are biblical: 51 feet overall, 31 tons of displacement, and a full 14.5 tons of encapsulated lead buried deep in a keel that runs nearly the length of a city bus. That is not bolted on, not glued in as an afterthought, but sealed inside a glass sarcophagus that turns groundings into speed bumps. The suits cannot handle it. Their models choke on the mass alone, a ballast to displacement ratio just under 50%, a writing moment that makes knockdowns a bad joke. They stamp their denials: vessel exceeds acceptable risk profile, and material age and construction type incompatible with underwriting standards. But the Formosa 51 does not care. There is a case in the owner logs, call it Case J, a full circumnavigation logged in black ink, crossing the Indian Ocean, the Southern Ocean, and the North Pacific. Hull tapped and measured at every port. Not a single crack, not a single delamination. Just a parade of surveyors shaking their heads in disbelief. The insurance market calls it obsolete. The ocean calls it immortal. This is the spreadsheet breaker, the actuarial endgame, the monster that completes the escalation arc from pocket tanks to globe-spanning dreadnoughts. The Formosa 51 is not just uninsurable, it is unkillable. If you want to see what real armor looks like, put the policy paperwork down and run your hand along the hull. This is the final war cry. The ocean respects mass, not models. The suits can deny coverage, but they cannot erase the legend. The Leviathan sails on. Across all 10 of these bruisers, one pattern is undeniable. Actuarial spreadsheets call them obsolete, but 3 inches of solid glass and 10,000 pounds of lead don't lie. Corporate suits worship depreciation. The ocean worships armor. These ironclad veterans aren't dying of rust, they're being strangled by bureaucracy. Their extinction isn't fate, it's a choice. Stand with your tank and defy the actuaries. Drop your battle stories in the comments below.